Greetings, friends of the bike and the Marin County Bicycle Coalition. I'm your host, Christopher Kaiser. I am the host of this series of Lost Summer live stream bicycle celebrity interviews, and we'll be here all summer. I am joined today by Caroline Diesendorf. Caroline, what can you tell us today?
All right, thanks, Kaiser. So welcome to episode 2 of the Lost Summer. Marin County Bicycle Coalition Summer Fundraiser supporting our off-road program as well as local COVID-19 relief efforts. So if you don't know about Marin County Bicycle Coalition, we work to create healthy, connected, and sustainable Marin by promoting bicycling for everyday transportation and recreation. And we are launching this fundraiser. We're in week 2 to get more money for our off-road program. And then we are donating 25% of the proceeds to local organizations, Canal Alliance and West Marin Senior Services. And you can go to our website, marinbike.org/lostsummer to enter the giveaway for a bike and some more prizes from Easton, Velocio, and Ornat. And huge shout out to our sponsors, Mike's Bikes, Dolan Law Firm, Marin Cyclists, The New Wheel, and Bay Area Bicycle Law. Kaiser, can you tell us more about the bike that we have as a grand prize?
Tell you more about the bike, I absolutely can. Mike's Bikes has really stepped up for this giveaway. They are offering a 2021 Specialized Diverge Pro Carbon bike. This is the new one that was just announced last month. It's got the swap box on it. It's got Eagle on it. It's Eagle. Payson can tell you about the success of this drivetrain. It's a fantastic bike. It costs $10 per entry. Big shout out, big thanks to Matt Adams and Mike's Bikes for really helping us out there. But more importantly, this isn't just about the bike. This is about COVID relief for the Canal District, and we appreciate any support you can give Marin County Bicycle Coalition and the COVID relief here. But I want to get to Payson McElveen. I know you're all excited about this. This is a new generation of racer. He's been a traditional mountain bike champion. He's won 2 years national champs on the mountain bike. He's 27 years old. He's made the transition to gravel racing. He races for the Orange Seal team. It's the off-road team, which is actually from Marin County, Mill Valley, I believe it is. He's won back-to-back titles at the Mid-South. This year was an especially epic edition. He hosts a popular podcast, which I listen to religiously every week. He's kept his schedule. It's called The Adventure Stash. If you haven't listened to it, be sure to subscribe to that one. He also holds a BS in exercise science and a minor in English, which is why he's so good with the words. And he went to Fort Lewis College. So we're going to talk about a few of those things. But here he is, Payson McElveen. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to see you guys again. Feels like it's been more than the few months that it has since I saw you all at Mid-South, but so it goes this year, I suppose.
When did you leave Marin County? You were out here training in the springtime with your Orange Seal teammates, Kai and Hannah, right?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't remember. I want to say into February, roughly. Sometime right. Late in February is when we left. Yeah.
Yeah. You wintered here. We didn't winter. You did your spring training camp. You stayed here for quite a while, and how did that work out for you? We should point out, you live in Durango, Colorado, and there's great winter sports there. Nordic skiing is fantastic for cyclists, but you chose to do a bit of a camp here because you were invited by your Orange Seal team, and the weather was convenient. What else did you like about training here in Marin County?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not much of a snow sports person. I grew up in Austin, Texas, and that skiing isn't really something my family ever did. And so I'm a bit of a migratory individual. So whenever temps start dropping here in Durango, I usually get out as soon as I can. And these days, my two kind of go-to training grounds from late December through kind of early March, typically, honestly, is SoCal and the Marin area. So usually I'll spend January down in the Los Angeles area. That's where Red Bull is based, and they have a training facility there. So I take advantage of that. But honestly, the bike riding I like more in the Bay Area in Marin. So typically I spend a month down in SoCal, and then once I'm tired of that, I have my excuse to come up to Marin, and then usually they have to kind of winch me out of there. It's still a life goal to have a landing pad in the Marin area one day, for sure.
Well, you're leading the van life now, so you're like a
Yeah,
turtle. Wherever you go, you got your little home with you.
it's true. Yeah, I have a mobile landing pad for now, but I wouldn't mind having a permanent second home in Marin one day.
Yeah. It's also your mobile recording studio. I've heard a couple podcasts of you just doing your intros from
Hmm.
your van. You're out in the desert somewhere one time. You really paint a nice picture. I don't want to harp on it from your degree in writing, but yeah, you really have a great way with words. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
there go the wheels.
Oh no, are those prize wheels?
No, they're to be
Oh,
sold
okay,
by me.
good. Then no one on this call cares. Um, but yeah, the van is great. You know, it's funny. I used to fly to all my races pretty much, and then I was flying over the Grand Canyon at one point on my way to the Sea Otter Classic, and I just looked down at the Grand Canyon. And I was like, you know what? If I drove to the Sea Otter Classic, I could stop here on my way, check out the Grand Canyon, and see all this cool stuff in between, rather than seeing my house here in Durango, my hotel at Sea Otter Classic, and the Sea Otter Race Course. And so around that time is when van life was really exploding, and I figured it would be a good investment just from my own experiences standpoint, because pretty much all of the professional racer retired pros that I talk to say it's the stuff between the races that you actually remember most. And so I really wanted to invest in those times between the races as well. And it's been a great marketing tool as well. And it's just a fun getaway. I mean, it's been great during this COVID pandemic to make little weekend getaways into the high country around Durango here. So yeah, it's been a great asset.
Well, hanging out in Durango, it's not a terrible place. I grew up on the Western Slope myself, and
Okay.
in Fruita, Colorado, before mountain bikes were available to us, unfortunately. But you've been doing some great adventures. What are some of the trips you've been taking? You're making the most of your. I don't want to say the race goal is changing, but a lot of stuff's disappeared from our calendar. We be honest. So, is it giving you a little more latitude? Has that been a silver lining to be able to enjoy your backyard some instead of traveling every single week to a far-flung location?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's tricky because as a racer, you get so fixated on performance and get so much validation out of performance that for a little while it was a little bit hard to let go of normal training. And I had such good fitness going into Mid South, and then on the back end of it, that I just kind of wanted to keep the momentum rolling. So I kept training full throttle. And back then we weren't exactly sure how long things were going to be shut down anyway. So there's a little bit of optimism there. But eventually I got peer pressured by Rebecca Rush into doing this Everesting challenge. And that put me in such a hole for so long that I was finally forced to take a break from training.
You did that on your mountain bike, didn't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
it's better than doing it on his mountain bike. He also was doing just riding around a bit instead of focusing on up and down climbs, right? Am I right, Payson?
I did it. I did it on one climb, but it was the high country single track trail that had, you know, descents in the middle and technical rock gardens and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't your traditional Everesting where you maximize to just get as many feet, you know, or meters ticked off as fast as possible. I
Wait, so
wanted it to be,
miles.
sorry,
How many miles?
it was 140 miles. And
So there was no respite, no descending and sitting up and just having a
no, the
bike and
descending
drink.
honestly was the worst part. Well, for the first half, it was awesome because when you ride the same section of trail a gazillion times, you get really, really good at that trail. And so I was just shredding this trail. And then about 2/3 of the way through, my wrists and hands and arms were just really starting to go. And the rest period was actually ended up being the climb. And so I was dreading the descent every time because I could barely hang onto the handlebars. And on the last couple laps, I literally had to take breaks on the descent. So it was a little bit different, a different Everesting experience than is traditional, I guess. But I wouldn't have done it any other way. But anyway, point being, I rode myself into such a ridiculous hole for that effort. That's the only, for the data nerds out there, that was the only effort I've done with a TSS score higher than Kansas. And it just took at least 2 weeks for me to recover. And since then I've sort of gradually been building fitness back up, but at the same time, getting back to your original question, I've realized how much opportunity there is to enjoy the bike in a different way this year. Actually, tomorrow I'm leaving on a little bike packing trip. A few days ago, I did this totally insane high country ride where we hiked with our bikes on our backs for 2.5 hours above tree line, way, way high on this mountaintop, and then just did this free ride with no trail into Silverton, little town outside of Durango. So I've tried to dabble in different things and let go of the power meter and the training hours and that sort of thing a little bit. So we'll see. I'm optimistic that racing will come back around late fall, and like to think that I'll be within striking distance of some good race fitness should that happen. But for now, I'm not really worrying about traditional training too much.
So at this point, then, are you just targeting cyclocross single speed world championships?
Hell yeah. I mean, I have a tattoo on one hip. I need one on the other hip. I'm all unbalanced these days. No.
You have to explain. A lot of people don't know about the tattoo from the single speed world championships, even though we have a local resident, Rachel Lloyd, who also sports 2 tattoos. So go ahead and tell people.
She was on the tattoo table right before me in Bend, Oregon. So one of the I think coolest traditions in cycling is the Single Speed World Championships, which is a super underground yet very tradition bound and respected event that's 50% party, 50% bike race. And if you happen to be the winner, you have a mandatory tattoo to get. Or you can be like Sven Nys and be about to win and stop 100 yards from the finish line so you don't have to get the tattoo. But then everyone makes fun of you forever. So I opted for the tattoo. Still, it's probably the race weekend that I remember with the greatest fondness.
That's fantastic. Well, and it's in Durango, so there's crossing fingers that one happens.
We'll see.
Hey, I want to change gears just a little bit. We're getting kind of really inside baseball, and as much as Caroline and I appreciate it, we have a broad spectrum of listeners. But I do think I'm going to get to mention your wordsmithing. What's the best Strava title you ever made? Because I was thinking about your Everest. I was thinking about your Everest, and please tell me it didn't just say morning ride on it.
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I'm not that. When personally, when someone does a ginormous ride and it just says morning ride, to me, that's super cocky. Like, come on, acknowledge that you did a big ride. That's my personal take. Most creative title. I don't know.
You can come back to us on that one.
Yeah, there have been a lot of titles.
Okay, so I think one of your Instagram stories the other day, though, was just basically at hour 4, you always get like one song stuck in your head.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
For me, like those end up always being my Strava titles because I'm just like, that's what's in my head for 5 hours on the bike, which isn't very creative, but.
No, I feel you. That's a good one. The thing is, I usually get the same song stuck in my head after hour 4 of every ride. So at a certain point, just saying "Riding Dirty" for every single title on Strava would be no different than "Morning Ride." Anyway.
Mine would all be Willie Nelson tunes. So
hell yeah. Now we're
kind of lost on most of the demographic. I've been doing sort of a crash course in Payson, all things Payson. And I watched the Privateer video, and I was thinking about that. You know, you've got national championships to your name. You've got some big wins. But you started out as a privateer, and I think that's really important that people appreciate that time as a privateer, and you clearly do. I saw you spending time with the Bear Development Team, and those kids aren't privateers. They're supported by family and by the auspices of Julie Violich and a lot of sponsors. But because of this new trend and category in cycling, gravel, which you're such a big part of, people get a chance to be up next to you that you see. There's a lot of young guys getting into it. And as I was wondering if there's anything you could recommend to young people instead of just, everybody wants to be sponsored right away. I'm a sponsor. I got a logo on my shirt. But talk about your years as privateer and how that formed you as an athlete.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, I mean, this could be a long answer. I'll try to make it on the shorter side. But first of all, growing up in Austin, Texas, the terrain sort of has certain limiters in regards to development, if that makes sense. It's a pretty flat area. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of Austin. The nearest trails I had were almost a half-hour drive away. And the longest climb I had to train on until I was about 18 years old was maybe 5 minutes long, 3 minutes long. And so I developed into this really punchy kind of power rider. And when I moved to Colorado and started racing more nationally, I realized that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was. And I had serious holes in my ability, everything from technical riding to steady state power, climbing ability, all that sort of thing. And I was fortunate in that I got taken under the wing of a development team called the Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory team, which is it was kind of the pro level team of Durango Devo, which is our huge junior development team here in Durango. And so this Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory team has pumped out all kinds of great riders like Howard Grotz and Teal Stetson Lee and Stephen Davis, lots of really successful riders. Sarah Sturm was on that team. We were teammates. And I think when I was 19, 20, no, I would have been 20, 21. I'd been on the team for a couple of years. The team disbanded, as happens. And I'd made a lot of progress with their help, but I still honestly hadn't achieved much in the way of results that merited a big pro contract. I was still in college. I'd podiumed at some, junior national championships and that sort of thing, but hadn't really proven that I was someone that deserved a major contract. And I was sort of looking down the barrel of, do I get a part-time job or do I just figure out how to make something on my own? And so from October through March one year, I just put my head down at my computer and just willed my own program to happen, and ended up with a pretty good budget that year, just as an individual. And I had to learn all kinds of skills to make that happen. Everything from Photoshop, designing my own kit, to how to write a business proposal, to just interpersonal skills, how to market myself. Basically just had to take a crash course in order to survive as a pro cyclist, and was able to make it happen. And at the time, I sort of had to kind of swallow my pride, or not, I definitely had to swallow my pride, because there were some other riders who were sort of peers of mine who were getting more opportunities than I was. But I just had to, look in the mirror and realize that I still believed that I could develop into a rider that deserved a big contract on a major team, but I wasn't there yet. And I needed to figure out how to make it work in the interim, and did that. And with the help of those sponsors and this Durango cycling community and many, many other people, I was able to make strides every year. And I guess in some ways I've been a little bit more of a late bloomer. Like I said, I was on the podium at national championships as a junior, but I never won a junior national title. I was never like the kid that's going to make it and be a pro. But over time, I just made incremental gains. And honestly, collegiate cycling was really big for that, becoming a more well-rounded rider. And slowly but surely, that first privateer program kind of rolled into a couple of other intermediate team options. And then piece by piece, it turned into a pretty big program, big enough that Trek and Orange Seal asked whether they could take over ownership of it. I think I want to say the year that I won national champs for the first time, they decided that it was worth kind of like taking over and putting infrastructure around and bringing staff to it and all that sort of thing, and bringing multiple riders on. So basically they asked, if we run this thing for you, will you give us what you've built to an extent, let us manage it? And I'm like, heck yeah. Been busting my ass doing like 5 people's jobs for the last few years. And so it worked out. And now that program is the Orange Seal Off-Road team. And we have more staff members than riders. And now, since I have this streak of needing to be chronically overworked for some reason, I've backfilled all of these other projects, so I'm just as busy as I was back then. But at least I'm not running my own team and chasing down my own sponsors.
Well, fantastic. It's great to hear the stair-step process that you took, because I think a lot of people think, well, you're a talented rider, and then you just get sponsorship and you go and you're flown all over the world, and you work very hard, and you are a real well-rounded individual. You mentioned it, that you're going to college, you're going to Fort Lewis. I appreciate that you mentioned this to Kate Courtney in a recent interview, and we discussed the same thing with her. It seems all professional women that we encounter, almost all of them, have college degrees, and not a lot of the men do. But you went to Fort Lewis, you succeeded there, you got your degree. Were there any moments or experiences during college? This comes from a friend who rides for UCLA. His name's Ethan Frankel. And he just wanted to know, any experiences in college that solidified your choice or emphasized your choice to be a cyclist and get a degree at the same time?
Good question. Well, first of all, it was never really a question in my mind. Put simply, I wasn't good enough to justify skipping college. And personally, it's a little bit of a strong stance, but I don't know that anyone is good enough to skip college necessarily. Maybe some very, very extreme circumstances, but and I should preface this all by saying I understand that there are all kinds of circumstances in different people's lives, and not everyone has the opportunity to go to college. But if you're someone that does have the opportunity to go to college financially, family support wise, whatever, I highly, highly recommend it, because in the scheme of things, you don't make your pro career when you're 19, 20, 21 years old. If you get results during that time, you're almost more like making a promise to the bike racing world that you have potential. But there aren't too many riders who we think of having their golden years in the pro ranks when they're 20 years old. Like, that's almost never happens. That said, I understand there's some absolute uber talents out there where kind of shortcutting the system might make sense. But I think of, like you said, I think of riders like Kate Courtney, Christopher Blevins. One of my favorite examples is Andrei Frischknecht, Tomas Frischknecht's son.
Yeah.
Who, if ever there was a candidate to go straight to the pro ranks and not do any college, it is him. But his dad not only had him go to school, but also enroll in some tradesman's stuff. So Andrei Frischknecht is an incredibly proficient woodworker. This is a little known fact, because when he was trying to win U23 World Championships, at the same time, he was pulling crazy long hours learning how to be a master woodworker, just because his dad wanted him to be diversified and not 100% laser beam focused on sport at only 19 years old. So I think there's a lot of value to not going all in 100% when you're that young in cycling. I mean, there's obviously it's different in different sports, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade that education for anything. I mean, you learn so much in college that isn't technically part of the curriculum too. All kinds of social experiences, life skills, learning how to truly manage your time. I think one thing that goes really overlooked in regards to being a professional athlete is all of the stuff that happens when you're not doing your sport, and how many work hours are involved and how many things you have to juggle and balance beyond just riding the bike. And having to juggle and balance a bunch of stuff off the bike when I was in college, I think was a very good way to be prepared to be a pro now.
So going from Austin to Durango and then college, when did you start coming out to ride in Marin?
That's a good question. I want to say my first time riding in San Francisco was for Bay Climb 2018. Is that right? Yeah, it would have been 2018. I think that's the first time I had ever been to San Francisco other than flying through the airport. And I went for a few rides after Bay Climb and really just was mind blown. I was like, I'm coming back. And then that,
the road?
sorry.
Was it the trails or the roads? Like what?
At that time, it was just the road riding. I actually only had a road bike with me on that trip, but I was immediately super hooked and was pretty sad when I had to leave for another race weekend. But then went back, I want to say January. So it was just a few months later. And then honestly, at this point, I can't say it's a second home really. I wish it were a second home. But at this point, I'd probably spend over 2 months a year, maybe 3 months a year, almost a quarter of the year in the Marin area now.
So that means we can plan on seeing you once the shutdowns change and you're back on schedule, huh?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Kate and I have been talking almost daily about training camps in California, Bay Area, SoCal, everything. As soon as it makes sense, I'm absolutely going to be out that way.
Well, that'd be, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but I will mention that another fantastically mustachioed gravel rider, Stetna, did participate in an MCBC gravel event and fundraiser. So, I mean, I don't want to put any pressure on you. I'm not going to make you commit here in front of the entire 10 people watching right now, but something to think about, Payson.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be totally honest, one of the things I love about the gravel community is that we're all friendly. I mean, I can't really think of anyone in that scene that I wouldn't want to just go out and ride with. I train with Colin Strickland a ton. We train together in Austin. We train together in SoCal. We train together in the Bay Area. Theoretically, in July, we're going to train together in an undisclosed location for a certain project. But I mean, going and training with Peter would be sweet. We actually talked about it some when I was there this winter. He's kind of a local though. I mean, I don't want to tread on his toe. Not a local, but NorCal guy. I don't want to tread on his toes too much because he might try to come out here to Durango and assert himself, which I don't want.
Well, that said, I did text Peter just before we got on here, and I asked him if he had any questions, and he said, "Who has the better mustache? You with your big furry caterpillar, or him with his what do we say, D'Artagnan dude?" Which he pulls off, but it's not easy.
No, it's true. It's true. I think, to be fair, when he gets proper old, if that thing starts turning white, that will be a look. That will be a good look. I think he'll age into that nicely. Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest, his look is a lot more bold. I think you need more self-confidence to pull off what he's pulling off with the little goatee there as well. But yeah, hats off. He's really embracing the dirt bag mentality. But no, he does not have a better mustache.
All right, there we go. Now we have it. Now we have a rivalry.
Now you started the fight. The gloves are off.
That's what I was trying to get going. See, now you have to show up for one of our gravel rides here. We had a fantastic gravel ride last year, and we actually plan on having it again this year. Put on by Marin County Bicycle Coalition. It is the Adventure Revival. That'll be coming up. It's already on the website under events, so sign up for that. Your neighbor Ned, the lung, Overend showed up and did it last year.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Ned just showed up to our tiny little ride and crushed and
hung out. He's altogether way too fast still. It's we have this weird thing in this town where retired pros don't get slower and don't train any less than they did when they were pros. Like we went out and did the Tuesday group ride, or I did the Tuesday group ride last week I want to say. And Todd, who's he's my mortgage lender,
retired.
Yeah, he's retired. Yeah. Theoretically has a very real world grown up job, just absolutely tore everyone to bits. And we were just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, can we have this now? You're done. Let us have this.
Yeah, it's funny. You said that when you moved from Austin, not Austin, was it Austin?
Yeah, Austin, yeah.
To Colorado. And you said, you thought you were good and then you got to Durango. It's like, you could move to Colorado from, to Durango from just about anywhere and still find out that you're not as good as you thought you were, because the people you're hanging out with, it's like here, all my friends are way too fast. I'm not a slouch, but my friends are just hammers.
Yeah. I mean, the scene here is just ridiculous. There was one year where all 3 professional mountain bike titles were here in town. I think all of us were under the age of 25. There were like 3 world championship jerseys on the weeknight group ride. It's ridiculous. And you have all of these locals who are on kind of dated bikes with hairy legs, and you don't really know who they are, but they will drop basically anybody. And they could go to any other group ride around the country and be the ones just like throwing the smack down. So it's the
like
level.
Durango have to have it like throw down now too.
That would be
like you might
have
a
good idea
going, but
it's a great idea.
You guys come out here at sea level and we'll talk about it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. I think with that, we need to wrap it up. So Payson, thank you so much for joining us. And again, guys, this is a fundraiser for MCBC and for COVID relief for local organizations. So Canal Alliance and West Marin Senior Services are getting 25% of what we raise. Our goal was to be over $5,000 today. So please help us get there. Go to marinbike.org/lostsummer and enter the giveaway for a brand new Specialized Diverge Carbon Pro.
Well said.
What?
Well said. Mouthful.
For other prizes, my sponsor Easton's throwing in 3 separate prizes. Velocia's throwing in a kit, or Not's throwing in some swag. And huge shout out again from our sponsors, Mike's Bikes is donating the Specialized, the Diverge, Dolan Law Firm, Marin Cyclists, the New Wheel, and Bay Area Bicycle Law. Thank you guys so much for supporting this cause. And Kaiser, I'll send it off.
Send it off. Well, that's fantastic. Everything that Caroline detailed, again, about the membership and part of Marin County Bicycle Coalition. I just realized that the last time I made a contribution to Marin County Bicycle Coalition, I didn't check the make this annual. So I had lapsed for a year or so. And so now I clicked on my contribution, and I clicked on just go ahead and renew annually. If you're able to, regardless, make sure you participate in the giveaway. Thanks again to Payson for being here. This week, we've got a great lineup. We have local legends, the most power couple in Marin, Olivia Dillon and Taylor Wiles, the couple who just tear it up on the road and the gravel. But again, thank you, Payson, for coming. Any sage words of advice you'd like to give? Any cyclists, any cones you would like to pass along as we say goodbye?
No, just how much I love coming to y'all's neck of the woods. I feel so fortunate to get to spend a good amount of my year there, and you have such a welcoming bike community that the terrain is as good as it gets to ride in, but also the cycling community in general has just been really welcoming, and I already have a lot of friends in that area. So I really look forward to coming back, and hope to see y'all again very soon.
Excellent. Give us a shout when you do. Thanks a lot, Payson. Bye.
Yeah,
Payson.
we'll do.
Bye.